Greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to our Thursday night live stream post Los Angeles Rams taking on the Seattle Seahawks in the game of the year. I don't know if there has been a better game than maybe, I think, week one, Baltimore versus Buffalo. I mean, this tops it, in my opinion. What an absolute banger of a game with the fantasy implications that it additionally had. Guys, where's the weather? I thought this was supposed to be the worst rain/weather game of all time. And not a single drop was, after the third quarter, I didn't see any weather, much less anywhere in that overtime period. But nonetheless, hey, we'll take it. For those of you who have Puka Nacua, congratulations. We'll see you in Championship Sunday. For those of you who have JSN, of course, the boy came through in the final moments. For those of you who have a Charbonnet, a Kenneth Walker, a Corum, or a Kyron, at least they scored double-digit fantasy points across the board. We'll take that. If you are one of the many lucky who somehow thought, you know what, let's roll with Parkinson alongside of Andrew, and you were burnt, I apologize. What an absolute fucking disaster that was. Colby Parkinson stayed home. He did just as much as I did for our fantasy teams this week. In terms of fantasy points, man was dropping the ball every other possession, and then when they got down in the red zone, unfortunately, sometimes it happens. The backup tight end will yoink a touchdown. In the case of this week, yeah, it was Ferguson. Unfortunate. If you had told me, Andrew, there's going to be no weather, the Rams are going to score 37 points, I tell you, shit, yeah, Parkinson's going to score. Of course he is. Why wouldn't he? And then this is what we get. I think sometimes being too smart is legitimately a problem. Thinking, oh, you know what? The Rams are going to score a lot of points. There's no Devontae Adams. Their number one red zone target's gone. Their number two red zone target's available. Of course he'll score a touchdown. Why wouldn't he? Nonetheless, we're here. And of course, we're moving forward. We have two games this upcoming Saturday. And they are hopefully going to be just as exciting. I doubt it, but let's just fingers crossed. Let's hope. Again, as we've progressed over the course of this week, we've gotten more and more information regarding injuries. Of course, earlier today, there's been a designation that both Luther Burden and Rome Odunze will not be playing in that Saturday night game. So, of course, keep in mind, for those of you who have potentially DJ Moore, Colston Loveland, two options there that certainly could be of value. But either way, we're going to be here to answer questions. If you guys have any, whether it is via the live chat and or super chat, make sure you include your scoring format. That is greatly appreciated. Man, I'm coming off of a high out of that game. As a Rams fan, I don't even mind what I just witnessed in terms of losing that game, because the fantasy implication, like I've explained to you guys before, because many have asked, like, Andrew, who's your favorite team? Always my favorite team is just making sure that fantasy football goes correctly. That is number one priority. And in the case of the fantasy points contributed to some of my teams where I have Puka Nacua absolutely carrying me to the promised land, I love seeing that. That was a great surprise in the overall situation. But yeah, as of right now, the primary takeaways from that game: never trust the weather again. And then outside of that, expect to be disappointed when it comes to the likes of the tight end position, because every time they have a chance of the new up and coming, oh, this is going to be the guy, they disappear right in the nick of time. All right, let's get into answering some questions here. I'm going to go ahead and pop it up on the right side of the screen. We had Auntie Slayer who says, my question is on Patreon, please and thank you. Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't have any time to check out Patreon. I posted rankings earlier today, then I immediately went to watch the game. As of course I'm a Rams fan, so I have to keep my eyes glued onto the game as a whole. But I'll see if I can go ahead and I can find your question. If you can, Auntie Slayer, potentially copy paste it into the live chat here. That would be greatly appreciated as well. But let me just go ahead and travel on over and see if I can find it quickly. If I can't, then of course I'll have you potentially paste it in the live chat here. Okay, I see your question. I'm going to go ahead and read it right now. One moment. Okay, so Auntie Slayer, your question is as such. It says 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and 2 flex. We have Josh Allen, Lamar. Obviously, you're going to play Josh Allen there. We have JT, Woody Marks, Estime, Hunt, Warren, Emmanuel Wilson, Jahar Jordan, and Malik Davis. Okay, so obviously you're going to play Jonathan Taylor there. In the event in which let's say, for example, I mean, Jacobs is going to play, so I wouldn't even begin to start to broach a conversation regarding Emmanuel Wilson. I think Jahar Jordan ends up probably being your number 2 start in this circumstance, assuming Woody's out. Otherwise, if Woody's available, he's my RB2. Then you have Rashee Rice, who did not practice earlier today. That is not a good sign. Again, another consecutive day of missing due to the concussion protocol leads me to believe he'll probably miss. So in the case of your situation, your top priority options, if Rashee Rice was to miss, would be, again, we have Burden as well, who's expected to miss. Tedderole McMillan and A.D. Mitchell would be your number 1 and 2 combo. And then within your flex position, I probably end up setting it up as probably rolling like Warren and Estime. That's what I'm immediately looking towards. Yeah, that's probably the way in which I go about it there. Thank you very much, honestly. I appreciate it. And then it says, and weather forecast for tonight. Yeah, in terms of the weather forecast for tonight. Yeah, crazy, right? Everybody thought, yeah, it's going to be... Listen, it's not even that... Here's the reality. Last night in Seattle, okay, I think it's like a 2 hours drive below Seattle, like the city, there was like wind speeds that would technically be categorized as like a hurricane, 140 mile per hour winds. So it wasn't like out of the realm of possibility in which we were going to get weather in this game. But again, the weather seems to be more unpredictable than fantasy football, which I'm not a weatherman. And unfortunately, whatever we were anticipating to potentially see over the course of that game, which was described to us, did not come to fruition. All right, continuing on, we had Eric, who sends in a question, says in a full PPR, put 1 point per 10 receiving yards and 1 point per 5 rushing yards. One flex between Cortland Sutton, David Montgomery, Just Mason, ? McCarthy or Love, appreciate you. Yeah, between these available options, I probably end up rolling McCarthy over Love. And then I probably end up rolling Cortland Sutton as the primary there. Again, I think David Montgomery could be a solid option, but the lack of rushing attempts, less than 10 attempts in each of the last 5 games, has me quite concerned about his potential. Yes, he could probably score a touchdown this week, but in the grand scheme of it, with a full PPR scoring format in the mix, I feel like Cortland Sutton is the preferred play between the two. If Montgomery was going to get himself a greater workload share, again, that would be something that I'm not able to predict, considering the trend of where he has been, with 5, 6, 7 rushing attempts over the course of the last month of the season. So I'd probably lean in the direction of Sutton there. In the event in which Christian Watson's available, though, at that point, I'd play Jordan Love. If we can get a confirmation that there's no problem with Josh Jacobs and Christian Watson's also going to be out there, then at that point, I'd go with Love. Otherwise, I'll take McCarthy if Watson's going to be out. Thank you, Eric. All right, Ram sends in a question. It says, in a full PPR, which 3 wide receivers do I start with, A.J. Brown, London, Rice, or Jennings? Yeah, look, as of right now, it's trending towards the likelihood in which Rice is not going to play. He did not practice yesterday nor today, so the expectation is most likely that he's going to miss due to the concussion protocol. In the event in which that happens, your question is determined for you, to which you play A.J. Brown, Drake London, and Jennings. Now, I'm very curious as to what the current day report is regarding the Atlanta Falcons receiver, Drake London. Let me see exactly what his injury report looks like this week. I know he had a limited practice yesterday. I want to see what his status is as of earlier today. Earlier today, Drake London was limited practice again. So let's say, for example, we get a confirmation that Rashee Rice is playing. I'd go A.J. Brown, Rashee Rice, and Jennings. If, again, the decision is made for you, to which Rice is out, then, of course, then you have to play London. My only concern is, could London be on a snap/pitch count? Could he re-aggravate the injury? That's why I don't want to immediately throw him out there, and I would prefer to play Rice. But in the event in which you have to, then yes, we do it. Also, Caleb or McCarthy. As of right now, I have McCarthy ranked higher, especially with Caleb having no Burden nor Rome Odunze this week. I think that does not help his overall potential. Appreciate it. Pete, what's up? Says, I benched Colby Parkinson and Myers last second. Phew, congratulations, brother. That is absolute dodged a bullet, to say the very least, my good sir. Benching Myers, that's an interesting call, to say the least. I mean, obviously it panned out, obviously considering the 2-point conversion fiesta that was that game. But yeah, benching the number 1 kicker in fantasy is never an easy decision, but congratulations on pulling that, my man. That's a clutch decision. Stonebreaker says questions in the chat. Thanks, boss. Appreciate it, Stonebreaker. Says full PPR. I'm assuming Marvin Harrison is going to play. Yeah, he's absolutely going to play. I did see practice film earlier today of him running routes, looking good. The heel injury that, of course, kept him out last week, not too much of an issue. We have says, would you start Michael Wilson, Wanda Robinson, or Jaden Reed, wide receiver 2? I would still play Michael Wilson there. I mean, at this point of the available options, I do feel like Marvin Harrison could go back to being the number 1 receiving option, but I want to try to assume that the Arizona Cardinals are not just going to position Michael Wilson to the back of the line in terms of opportunity comparatively to Trey McBride and Marvin Harrison. And yes, he may not retain his starting role of getting double-digit targets, but I'd like to hope that the opportunity share that he would theoretically be exposed to against an Atlanta secondary would be enough in the form of like 8 to 9 targets to which he could still be highly relevant in comparison to Wandell and Reed. So I'd go with Michael Wilson there. And also, are we not worried about Jay Allen against the Cleveland defense? Brissett averaging 20 points. Are we talking about the potential of playing Brissett over Josh Allen? Look, the fact of the matter is, just ultimately, the Cleveland defense has done nothing in recent weeks to make me feel any sort of concern. They allowed the Tennessee Titans to go into Cleveland and score 30 points as an offense. So, like, if the Cleveland Browns are giving up that many points to the Titans, I'd imagine one of, if not the best offense in the National Football League, with MVP Josh Allen under the center, is going to be able to impose their will and do whatever they want. Josh Allen probably scores 3 touchdowns, if not has one of those games where he scores 4 or 5 within the given week. Thank you. All right, let's see here. Ibrahim sends in a question, says, Colby screwed me. Yeah, join the club, brother. Absolutely, we all got cooked. Still in a close week with Colby dudding. I'm scared to play Estime in a half PPR. How much do you prefer Estime over Wanda Robinson and Diggs? It depends on scoring format. In a half PPR sense, let's see where I had them earlier today. Let me go ahead and pull that up real quickly in terms of my rankings. Okay, so in regards to Estime's positioning compared to the two, yeah, I mean, I have him significantly ahead of Stephon Diggs. As for Wandell Robinson, it's not a significant gap between the two. I could consider playing Wandell Robinson in that circumstance, but again, I don't love the matchup against the Vikings, nor do I love the overall yardage counts that we've seen from a Wandell Robinson of late. In a full PPR, I'd feel more confident, but considering Devin Neal's been sent to the IR and Alvin Kamara has not practiced in each of the last 2 days and hasn't played in the last 3 weeks, I'm very confident in going Estime in this circumstance, considering they're taking on the number 3 matchup. I mentioned it earlier this week. The Jets are allowing, over the course of since week 5 through 15, 110 rushing yards per game and a rushing touchdown per game to opposing running backs. So if that's up for grabs, you'd assume that Estime would be likely to see a lot of that overall opportunity share, hopefully, this week. Benny B sends in a question. What's up, Benny? Says, for the flex, we have Michael Wilson, Stephon Diggs, Wandell Robinson, Estime, or Chuba Hubbard. Look, of these available options, I'm leaning towards Michael Wilson as my primary number 1. The way in which I would order it would be Wilson 1, Estime 2, Wandell Robinson 3, Stephon Diggs 4, and Chuba Hubbard 5. So Michael Wilson, I think, has to be the start. I understand earlier this season, just a couple weeks ago in the return of Marvin Harrison, we did see Michael Wilson take a little bit of a step back. But again, based on the way that he has played of late, I'm going to assume, and based on what the coaching staff, specifically the offensive coordinator of the Arizona Cardinals, have said publicly to the media, that Michael Wilson's role will not diminish enough to where he is completely out of the mix and the lesser option compared to what you have available for this week. Thank you. Michael Alvarez sends in a question, says questions in the chat. Thank you, Michael. All right, Mike says, better flex for this week, Monangai, DJ Moore, or Jaden Reed? No, I prefer DJ Moore 100%. Again, like I mentioned earlier, and I'll go ahead and continue to let you all know, the Chicago Bears, because they play on Saturday against the Green Bay Packers, they have already designated both Luther Burden and Rome Odunze out. So the number 1 and number 2 wide receiver out there is DJ Moore and Zacchaeus. So the expectation is that DJ Moore within a matchup against Green Bay, yes, it's not the easiest matchup that you could possibly ask for. But when you have an opportunity of playing without Burden or Odunze, the target opportunity volume should theoretically increase enough to where it should lead to DJ Moore being the more valuable prospect of the 3 that you have available there. says it's a standard league. Is Monungai top 15 back with no Swift? Swift is going to play. Again, like I mentioned earlier, Luther Burden and Rome Odunze has already been designated out. If they were going to designate Swift out, it would have already been done. Swift was a limited participant in practice both Wednesday and Thursday. He's questionable for this week, but ultimately is ready to go. I'm not worried about it at all. In the event in which he was to miss, then yes, Monungai would then at that point be the selection between those three and would be a top 15 back, certainly. Thank you. All right, let's see here. Machine sends in a question. Says in a half PPR, flex, pick one. Loveland, Michael Carter, estimate. I believe I have Michael Carter near the top of that conversation. Let me see where I have him stacked up compared to the others. So in the case of that, I have Michael Carter 1, estimate 2, and then I have Colston Loveland 3. That's the order in which I roll it. Colston Loveland could be a solid option in this case, but it's going to be touchdown dependent. I don't think the overall target opportunity at which he'd be distributed is going to be enough. Again, Cole Kmet's still going to be out there, still going to be vying for targets. I think Loveland is a great option. I have moved him up in my rankings over Warren, but enough to where am I playing him over Michael Carter? No. I think Michael Carter's overall distributed opportunity share and the matchup against Atlanta is just far too advantageous there. Thank you. Ibrahim sent in a follow-up. Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it. Says, what are you expecting the split between Estime and Hull to look like? I mean, ultimately, from what we saw this most recent week, that is kind of what we should anticipate to see. So I would venture to say if they want to run off the hot hand and run that kind of an approach, it could be a little bit more devastating for us if it starts to split. But whichever way the overall script goes, my expectation in terms of the volume of opportunity, both rushing attempts and targets that'll be distributed in this backfield, should be more of like a 65-35 or 70-30 split in the favor of Estime in this given week. Alrighty, appreciate it. And then it says, are we starting Olave? I'm starting Olave already. A problem to go estimate over Wanda Robinson. Is it technically a problem? When you're playing against the Jets, I don't see that to be a problem. Especially when, again, your favorites against the Jets have Brady Cook at quarterback. I would venture to say that's not an issue. If the Jets defense was a little bit more of a threat, then maybe I'd have a little bit of a concern regarding the potential of making that move. Appreciate it. Okay, let's go and hop into the live chat, see what you guys have to say. For those of you guys who are joining us, my Pukaholics, where are you at? What a name, huh? How about that? Trey says, start 2 in a full PPR. We have McConkey, we have DJ Moore, we have Kyle Pitts. As of right now, I'm leaning towards DJ Moore and Kyle Pitts in this case. I think McConkey, of course, has an incredible matchup against the Dallas Cowboys. Just don't know if I can outright blindly trust him at this moment. Until I get further kind of word on Drake London, I think if London was to play, it definitely does diminish the value of Kyle Pitts enough to where maybe he could end up sitting, excuse me. Jeez. He could end up sitting for McConkey, but for right now, I think if it's my team, I'm probably preparing to play Moore and Pitts there. Muhammad says, hey man, we made the playoffs. We made it to 3 to 4 years of consistent playoffs. Because if you go, help me one more week, Cortland Sutton, DK Metcalf, Travis Etienne, or Mike Evans in a half PPR, start 2. Flex 1. Okay. Thank you very much, Muhammad. Congratulations for another playoff berth in this circumstance. I feel like you have to play Travis Etienne. He's been far too consistent of late not to go in his direction once again, to which then at that point, I would stack up Mike Evans and Cortland Sutton as my other 2 alternative options there. Thank you. So I'm starting Sutton and Evans as my wide receivers, and I'm flexing Etienne. Thank you. Start 2. Okay, yeah. Chicken wings, spare ribs, or ravioli. As of this very moment for this week, I'd probably end up rolling the direction of a spare ribs, chicken wings. I think they're both in the same category. It's finger food, right? At that point, we're not really we're not going to go and grab a fork after we're getting into the ribs. Let's see, your AD Mitchell or Xavier Worthy. Xavier Worthy would end up being the start in the event in which Rashee Rice was inactive this week. If he is active, then at that point, I think AD Mitchell has to be started. Let's see here. Jay Newton says, in a full PPR, 0.2 per carry league, pick one between Hampton, Dallas Goedert, Drake London if he plays. In a full PPR circumstance, like Omarion Hampton's rushing attempts will probably look like 12 attempts this week. So in the event in which you're getting 0.2 per rush for 12 rushes. You get 2.4 fantasy points additionally. I think I'm still going with Drake London in that case. David Montgomery or Estime? I'd probably go Estime in this case. Says I wanted to follow up. So if Swift does play, Swift over DJ Moore in a standard. In the event in which Swift, yes, if Swift ends up playing, which he probably will, I would play him over DJ Moore in a standard scoring format. If it was a full PPR though, then I would go with probably DJ Moore at that point. To all who sat Stafford, I feel your pain. Yes, I mean that's rough. That's definitely rough, especially considering we thought the weather was going to be what it was, but alas, it is not. Okay, a couple more super chats were sent in. Mike Alvarez sends in a follow-up question. Says, oh yeah, we already took care of this. Okay, thank you very much, Mike. Appreciate that. Okay, we had Hawk559 who says, Parkinson screwed me. Should have started Warren. Yeah, I mean, I hope that for your sake, regardless of Parkinson screwing you over, hopefully you still are able to pick up a victory this week and advance to the next round. But yeah, I feel your pain, brother. I feel your pain. Jennifer sends in a question. Says, questions in the chat. Thank you, King. Appreciate it. Says, PPR pick 2. I need some upside after getting Puka. Carter, Keenan, Estime, Godwin, Waller. Also, crazy to start Shuck over Dart. Is it crazy? No, I don't think it's crazy. Would I personally do it? Probably not. I think Dart's rushing upside is very much so stable, but I could make the same argument that Shuck, like he did a couple weeks ago, could come out, run for 50 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns and absolutely maul the week against the Jets. So there's always the potential there. I don't think it's a crazy decision, though. I think it's close, as you can tell from earlier today's rankings. Now, in regards to potentially trying to pick 2 of these in a full PPR in order to try to combat what Puka Nacua was able to accomplish earlier today, I would say that in order to combat it, we have to go like Waller and Carter. I think you have to go after Darren Waller in hopes that the Cincinnati Bengals matchup can provide like a 16 to 20 point game, and in hope that Carter falls into the end zone like we've seen Bam Knight do over the course of the last month, on top of all the workload that he could theoretically capture. Like he comes away with somewhat near like 50 rushing yards, 30 receiving yards, ends up getting a touchdown, could very easily be a 16-point contributor in a full PPR, maybe even greater. We have to hope that that kind of performance is capable from Carter and Waller to be able to help at least get closer. Not going to be able to completely catch up to Puka, but at least get the job done, hopefully, in that circumstance. I'm confident in those two. Thank you, Jennifer. All right, continuing back to the live chat. Appreciate y'all being patient. All right, let's see here. Let's see. Dolly says, in a half PPR, flex, Tedero McMillan, Kenneth Gainwell, Marion Hampton, or Kyle Pitts. Thanks. In the event in which London was out, I'd play Kyle Pitts there. Otherwise, I feel like in a half PPR scoring format, as long as London ends up playing, I probably end up rolling with Gainwell in that case. Ebbs and Flow says, sup, Andrew? PPR started JSN. I need 3 between Jefferson, London, Ibuka, Marvin Harrison, Reed, Devontae Smith. Thanks, brother. I mean, I think London would have to play in this circumstance alongside of Marvin Harrison. Then your number 3 options, kind of a toss-up. Like, are we willing to run down the Jefferson or Ibuka side of the conversation? Because again, both of them have been incredibly inconsistent of late, or they've been consistently just underwhelming. That's the reality. Same thing with the Devontae Smith. I think Reed is not as valuable. Personally, if it's my team, I'll pair up London and Marvin alongside of Jefferson in this circumstance, though. Start 2 in a full PPR from Jacob. Let me see what your full question was in terms of the context. It says, I'm stuck between my running backs. I need to start 2, potentially 3, with Dowdle, Hubbard, Michael Carter, David Montgomery, Vidal, and Estime. Start 2, maybe 3 full PPR. Okay, so in the case of this overall situation, I feel like Dowdle has to play, especially with the contribution of opportunity he was granted last week comparatively to Hubbard. I'd assume that that overall split continues to stay as such, to which Dowdle is going to guarantee himself about 70% of the workload. I would pair him up alongside of Michael Carter. We've talked about it over the course of this season. The Arizona Cardinals backfield has been attributed nearly upwards of 25 opportunities per game minimum over the course of this season on average. So if we're going to be in a situation where Michael Carter is going to get the vast majority of that, maybe a couple sprinkles of an Amari DeMercado if available, I feel like Dowdle and Michael Carter have the greatest opportunity of touches in terms of the volume of touches they're going to be granted comparatively to the field of players you have here. If we are in a desperate enough situation, I could justify the idea of playing an Estime here, but it just depends on what that other alternative is when you say 2, maybe 3. But for now, I think the number 1 and 2 guarantee should be a Michael Carter Dowdle kind of experience. All right. Drewski15 has sent in a question. Thank you very much. Says, good evening, brother. Thanks for all the help. Appreciate it. Your question was, in a full PPR, one quarterback, two wide receivers, two running backs, one flex. We've got Burrow and Purdy. Okay, so I'm going to play Purdy there, preferably. Amon-Ra, Rice, Sutton, McLaurin, Abuka. So in regards to the wide receiver conversation, I think Amon-Ra, St. Brown, and Sutton should be expected to be played. Rashee Rice is still up in the air. If I had to guess, I would assume he's probably going to miss this week due to the concussion protocol. In the event in which he does play, yes, I would prefer to play Rice alongside of Amon-Ra, but let's just assume he doesn't end up playing just to prepare preemptively. So if we're going Purdy at quarterback, Amon-Ra and Sutton at wide receiver, we look at running back, you have Chase Brown, Tracy, Woody, Michael Carter. For sure going to play Chase Brown and Tracy in that circumstance as your 1-2 combo. Then we look towards the flex position. In the case in which Rice is available, Sutton would play in the flex. In the case in which Rice is not available and Sutton is my starting wide receiver, then at that point it becomes a matter of, am I playing a McLaurin or am I going to play a Woody Marks, Michael Carter within the flex position? If Woody Marks is available and starting this week, which I highly doubt, he would play in the flex. Otherwise, I say in a full PPR, let's see where I have McLaurin. That's McLaughlin. I need McLaurin. There he is. In the case of McLaurin, yes, I would play McLaurin in a full PPR here if Woody Marks is not available and Rashee Rice is not available. And then moving on to your second question, it says, Worthy or Dowdle for another team flex? I would probably play Dowdle regardless. I think it's probably just safe there. In the event in which Rice is out, I could justify going Worthy, considering I know his volume of opportunity would increase, similar to where it was last season when Rashee Rice went down with injury. But earlier this year, there just wasn't enough opportunity towards Worthy, so I'd feel pretty comfortable just going Dowdle, regardless of which way it goes. Thank you, Drewski. Appreciate it. All right, let me go ahead and let me catch up on some of the other super chats that were sent in as well. We had 210. Wemby says, full PPR, I start Purdy or Goff. I'd prefer to play Purdy in this circumstance. I think both are justifiably top 10 quarterback plays though this week, but I do prefer Purdy in this circumstance. Says we have James Cook, we have Josh Jacobs, St. Brown, Harrison Jr., or Reed if Watson is out / Dowdle in the flex. Okay, so in the case of this, obviously you're playing James Cook and Jacobs. St. Brown is probably going to be your starting wide receiver. Then the question ends up being, am I playing Marvin Harrison or Reed? In the event in which okay, let's say oh wow, it's an interesting one. I think I play Marvin Harrison regardless. Marvin Harrison would be my wide receiver too. So then it becomes a matter of, am I going to play Dowdle or Reed in the event in which Watson was out? In a full PPR, do I still play Reed in that case? Yeah, I would. In a full PPR, I would play Reed if Watson was out. And Dowdle will be the odd man out. In the event in which Watson is going to play tomorrow, Saturday, then you would play Dowdle here in the flex. Loveland's your tight end. New Orleans defense, perfect. My opponent had Puka. Yeah, that's rough, brother. Hopefully everything turns out well and you can pull out a absolute barn burner of a comeback. Full PPR comes in from John. It says double flex league, sit one. Franklin, Dobbs, Carter, Waller. I'm going to sit Dobbs. In the event in which Christian Watson is inactive, there could be a little bit more credence to playing Romeo Dobbs in this circumstance, but I think even still then, I would prefer to play Waller, Michael Carter, and Troy Franklin this week. Thank you. Blazed sends in a question. Blazed, thank you. Says start two in the flex, full PPR. DK Jacoby Myers, who congratulations to Jacoby, just inked a brand new deal. Michael Carter, Diggs, Fannin. Of these available, if I'm starting two in the flex in a full PPR, I think DK Metcalf has to start alongside of him. Let me see where I have Fannin structured compared to a Jacoby Myers. I'd play Fannin there. So I'd go DK and Fannin as my 1-2 combo. Those are my two highest ranked. Jacoby Myers would be third. Carter would be fourth. Diggs would be fifth. So Fannin and DK are my suggestion. Play it against Stafford. Ooh, yeah, that's a rough one. Stafford goes for what? 400 yards? 3 tutties? What a crazy game. No weather. Benny B says, do you believe in Joe Cool or bench for Jacoby? As of right now, I have Jacoby projected for more fantasy points. I think the safety at which Jacoby provides, along with the ease of his matchup, I think it's an easier rollout that I'm going to get 20 points from Jacoby Brissett. And if he plays beyond that and gives me 23 to 24, it wouldn't surprise me. For Joe Burrow to do that, it's very capable. We know he's capable of accomplishing it. But as of right now, I think there's a little bit more volatility with Joe Burrow comparatively to a Jacoby Brissett. So I'd go Jacoby. Johnny B, what's up, brother? Says full PPR, Brissett, Hall, Woody, Chase, Tet, Evans, Watson, / bench is Michael Carter, Ibuka, Myers, Reed, and Estime. Double running backs, double wide receiver, double flex. Please pick. Thank you. So yeah, Brissett's obviously your starting quarterback. You're good to go there. I would anticipate in your case to probably not have Woody Marks available this week. He did not practice Wednesday or Thursday. So the last 2 days he's been inactive. So we should probably anticipate to not see him available. In the event in which he is not available, Hall and Michael Carter would be your starting running backs. Chase, for sure, alongside of Mike Evans, will be my starting wide receivers. And then we look towards the flex position, to which in this case, if Tedero is healthy and Watson is healthy, those would be my top two options. Otherwise, if Watson does end up missing, which there is a chance, but in the event in which he does miss, then Myers is my next man up. Thank you, Johnny. Alex Ruiz sends in a question, says questions in the chat. Thank you, Alex. I appreciate it. Says full PPR flex 2. C-Rod, Carter, Manungai, Emmanuel Wilson, Estime. Okay, so there's a couple contingencies here. I don't want to play Chris Rodriguez regardless of anything. I think Emmanuel Wilson could end up being the start in the event in which Jacobs was out, surprisingly, on Saturday. If that does come to fruition, Emmanuel Wilson, by far and away, top 12 running back for fantasy, and I pair him up alongside of Michael Carter here. In the event in which Josh Jacobs is playing on this wonderful Saturday, my top two options are Michael Carter and Estime in this given circumstance. Then we move on to tight end. You have Dalton Schultz, Theo Johnson, Colston Loveland, and Brenton Strange. As of right now, the order at which I currently have it constructed would be in a full PPR, Dalton Schultz 1, Loveland 2, Strange 3, Theo Johnson 4. In a 4-point per passing touchdown format, Hurts or Brissett, I prefer Jalen Hurts. Again, the Washington Commanders secondary is the worst in the league. They have been absolutely torched by everyone, and I would anticipate for Jalen Hurts to absolutely impose as well on Saturday morning, or afternoon, in that matchup. I don't mind the idea of playing Brissett. I have them both earlier today on the channel, posted the video in terms of my top 16 tight end and quarterback rankings. I had both of them within the A tier. So I can justify playing Brissett over Hurts or Hurts over Brissett. But in terms of rankings and projections, I have Hurts ahead of him. Then we move on to Sauce 730, who says in a full PPR, Waddle or Buka. I prefer to play Ibuka, especially in a full PPR. If I'm going to get more points per reception, I don't really trust Quinn Ewers to the point to where I can justify playing him over Emeka Ibuka this week. In another league, Troy Franklin or Zacchaeus, that's an interesting one. For right now, I'll still lean in the direction of Franklin there. I haven't really been able to see Zacchaeus with a greater opportunity share because Luther Burden has kind of absorbed everything in the last couple of weeks of the absence of Rome Odunze. I think Zacchaeus could be of value. There were a couple games earlier this season where he comes away with 7 grabs, but ultimately, I think Franklin's the safer play. Ibrahim sent in a follow-up, says, thoughts on these players? Henry versus recently struggling Pats run defense should be fantastic. Again, we talked about it earlier this week. Yes, they have recently been struggling in the last 3 games, whether it was Buffalo, Cincinnati, or even the New York Giants. All 3 running attacks from their running backs found a lot of easy success. So I just like to hope that the game script will be in the favor of the Baltimore Ravens, to which they can run the ball heavily in the second half, wear down this defense, and let Derrick Henry do what Derrick Henry does best, and that's impose his will. Javonte Williams versus the Chargers run-stop defense. The Chargers are a terrible run-stop defense themselves, so as long as the Dak Prescott-led Cowboys can stay in the game and Javonte finds his touchdown, we know that he's proven it over the course of the last 3 games. He's going to get anywhere between 60 to 100 yards, score a touchdown, get anywhere between that 12 to 16 point range in a half PPR. And we're hoping he's going to be able to accomplish that. Is he a better player than Derrick Henry? No. Eagles defense versus Washington should be a great play. I have them ranked as a top 5 defense this week. Should be awesome. And Hampton's a little bit sketchy considering Vidal is still getting a lot of workload there. And I really don't trust the offense as a whole, much less the offensive line. CJB44 sends in a question, says double wide receiver, double flex format. We have Carter. We have Jalen Warren, Jaden Reed, Christian Watson, Jaden Higgins, and BTJ. So of these available, if I'm playing 2 wide receivers and 2 flex, my wide receiver plays are very much so contingent on a couple of situations. Is Christian Watson available? If the answer is yes, then Christian Watson would probably end up being my wide receiver 1, and I would most likely pair him up with the likes of BTJ. Then at that point, I look in the direction of what is the scoring format. I'm playing Carter as one of my flex. In the event in which we're at a full PPR, I would play Reed as my second flex. If it's a half PPR, I will play Jaylen Warren as my second flex. Thank you. In the event in which Watson is inactive, Reed would just play over him, and then Warren would automatically be that second flex. Thank you. Bray sends in a question, or Braden. Braden says, do I start Dak in a 6-point per passing touchdown league? It depends on what your alternatives are. Says also pick 2 wide receivers and 2 flex. We have Rico, Woody / Jordan, AD Mitchell, Christian Watson, Shakir, Coker. Also have Emmanuel Wilson. So yeah, look, first and foremost, in the event in which Josh Jacobs doesn't play on Saturday, guys, Emmanuel Wilson is a top 10 running back for fantasy immediately against the Chicago Bears. So in the event in which he's missing, in your case here, Emmanuel Wilson would be a starter in the flex. Now, I'm going to assume that Josh Jacobs does end up playing, considering he's a tough son of a gun and wants to play injured regardless. So as long as he's available for this upcoming Saturday's game, I'm expecting Emmanuel Wilson to be of no value. To which at that point, when I look at your wide receivers, as long as Christian Watson's available, he's my number 1. Number 2 in this circumstance ends up being, let me see where I have AD Mitchell compared to Shakir. In the case of AD Mitchell versus Shakir, I have AD Mitchell ranked higher. So it would be AD Mitchell and Christian Watson as my 1-2 combo at wide receiver in this given week. Then I would flex Rico. And then I probably end up rolling in the direction of whichever combo ends up coming out of here. If it's Woody playing, he starts. Otherwise, Jahar Jordan is my number 2 flex option in this circumstance. If Christian Watson's not available on Saturday, you play Shakir in his stead. Thank you. Alex Ruiz, 5396, says, Carter or Estime over BTJ? I would probably play Carter over BTJ there. Follow-up questions in the chat. Thank you, man. Appreciate it. All right, let's see here. In terms of your question, so we already took care of your question. If you have a follow-up question to that, go ahead and let me know. But yes, I do feel like Carter over BTJ is an appropriate play in the given week. I would even say that there's always a conversation to be had regarding Estime as well, considering BTJ has to take on that Denver secondary. Big Verge sends in a question. Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it. Says full PPR running backs are Bijan, Harvey, Hampton, Dowdle. Wide receivers are Rice, Evans, Tetaroa, Egbuka, London. 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and 1 flex. Yeah, I think this is relatively simple. Bijan Robinson takes on one of the best matchups you could possibly ask for. RJ Harvey's a touchdown machine and should get more receiving workload this week. Those are my top 2, and it's not even remotely close. Then when we get into the conversation of wide receiver, I would anticipate that Rashee Rice likely misses this week, to which then you are subjected to playing Mike Evans and Drake London, which I think are incredible plays. In the event in which Rice is available, he would be your flex. Otherwise, in the event in which he is not available, which we should anticipate to be the potential case this week, then at that point, I'm leaning in the direction of going Rico Dowdle there. Thank you. Jack sends in a question. Says, I sat Stafford for Burrow, and opponent had JSN. Pick 2 in a full PPR. We have Smitty, Sutton, Watson, and Michael Carter. Preferably in a full PPR, I would like to play Sutton and Watson. Now, again, it's very much so contingent on the availability of Christian Watson. In the event in which he is not available, at that point, I would suit up Courtland Sutton and Michael Carter as my 1-2 combo in that circumstance, I believe. Let me see. No, actually, in a full PPR as of this moment, I have Courtland Sutton and Smitty both ahead of Michael Carter in the event in which Christian Watson was not available to play us alongside of Sutton there. Thank you. Ibrahim sent in a follow-up. Let's see what you had to say here, brother. Appreciate it. It says, what does it say here? It says, if Woody is out but Chubb plays, do you play Jordan over Estime? In the event in which, yes, I still would, yeah. Based on the comments that D'Amico Ryans, the head coach of the Houston Texans, specifically came out and publicized to the media, it sounds like they're of the mindset as a coaching staff that Jordan is pretty much taken over the job in the event in which Woody Marks was to be inactive. It says also, do we think that what do we think he does against the Texans? You know, I would like to hope that a team that is going to be in a negative game script and probably not going to find any success running the football, I am hoping with all of my heart that he's able to catch at least 1 receiving touchdown. Otherwise, I think in any sort of circumstance of this case, we have to hope that he comes away with like 6 catches for 80 yards, which is kind of what I'm expecting within the upcoming week, assuming he gets the ample opportunity share that he desires and needs to be relevant with. 513 rookie says, ouch, bench Stafford, Jordan Love, or CJ Stroud. Got to go with CJ Stroud in that circumstance. Yeah, Stafford's overall ranking being just completely missing on earlier today's video was because I was legitimately concerned about the weather. All I heard all day long was, it's going to rain, it's going to rain, it's going to rain. Oh, it's going to be 50-mile-per-hour gusts. All right, great. Well, if that's going to be the case, how can I justifiably say, guys, you have to play Stafford if it's going to rain the entire game and be 50-mile-per-hour winds? Yeah, again, the weather is a completely different game than fantasy football, and we learned that once again today. Don't really trust the weather reports, as the weatherman is maybe not the most accurate in that circumstance. But in this case, CJ Stroud will be my suggestion, taking on the Raiders. Nathan Dennison sends in a question. Nathan, thank you. Says, I will never play Parkinson in my life. Tight end 4-5. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, my man. All right, let's get back to the live chat here, answer a couple more questions, then we're going to go ahead and head out in just a moment. I appreciate y'all coming through. Again, do not forget that this upcoming Saturday, starting at noon PST, I'll be live streaming here on the channel for, of course, questions to be answered prior to the two games, Washington taking on Philly, and, of course, Chicago taking on the Green Bay Packers. We'll have up to date on everything on that Saturday morning live stream or afternoon live stream, depending on where you're at. But I do appreciate y'all coming through today. All right, says, down versus Stafford in a full PPR. I played Parkinson. I need a running back and a flex out of Tracy, Dowdle, Hall, Evans, and Pittman. I don't think we can trust playing Pittman in this case. If you're playing in a full PPR circumstance here, I think the combination in which I approach with probably ends up being something like, in a full PPR, I think I go like Evans and Dowdle. That's kind of where I'm leaning at this moment. Went up against Puka. I need Bowers and Christian McCaffrey to come through. Yeah, CMC for me as well, brother. I need him to absolutely go nuclear. Start RJ Harvey or Woody. I don't think Woody's going to play this week. Don't anticipate him to play, but either way, I'd play RJ Harvey. Started Parkinson, on to 2026. Yep, join the club, brother. I'm all with that. I'm moving on because the team that I had Parkinson with, unfortunately, had to get absolutely buzzsawed by Puka today. Harvey or Justin Jefferson? I'd probably still go Harvey in that case. Jay, what's up, brother, my man? Says subpar Lamar, or does Dallas defense hear up Herbert? I mean, at this point, I'd rather play Lamar over Herbert. Standard pick 2 estimate, Carter, Pitts, or Goddard. As of right now in a standard scoring format, 0 points per reception, I think I genuinely play Goddard alongside of I'd probably go Goddard and Carter. Unless London was inactive, then I'd go Pitts and Goddard. Kelsey, Carter, Pittman, pick 1 PPR. I'm going to go Kelsey there. PPR, Tetaroa, Terry McLaurin, and DJ Moore. I'm beginning to probably lean in the direction of DJ Moore in this circumstance, considering Luther Burden and Odunze are both out. Start 2, Achane, Taylor, Jacobs, Lamb. In a full PPR scoring format, my highest ranked are Achane and Lamb in this case. Alfredo, what's up? Says pick 1 in a PPR flex. Moore, Judkins, Reed, Carter. I'm playing DJ Moore there. Do I drop anyone for Emmanuel Wilson? I don't mind the idea of dropping somebody like Reed in order to pick up Emmanuel Wilson, because I feel like if your opponent was able to pick up Reed and try to utilize them against you, it wouldn't be as effective. Just in case maybe, Jacobs does end up being inactive, you get a top 12 running back there. Reed or Tracy, I prefer to play Tracy there. Says, what do you think about Jacobs and Rice playing? I think Rice has a higher likelihood of missing, considering concussion protocol is not an easy pass. I've only ever seen one player over the course of the last 5 seasons clear concussion protocol in a week, and that's Marvin Harrison, and he's done it twice, once in each of the last 2 years. That's the only player I've ever seen do that. So I wouldn't anticipate for Rice to play. As for Jacobs, considering they play on Saturday, I'm assuming them as an organization decided, hey, he doesn't need a practice. He's Josh Jacobs. Let's just make sure he's ready for Saturday. And I think he'll be ending up being active on the day. Sam Bam, what's up? Says Dak or Knicks. I currently have Dak ranked higher. Says double running back, 1 wide receiver, 1 flex. We have Jacobs, Judkins, Jahar, and Manungai. I mean, as of right now, Jacobs and Judkins. Actually, Jacobs, and in the event in which Woody is out, Jahar end up being my 1-2 combo. Then I'm playing Lamb at wide receiver, and I'm Michael Wilson flexing. And then between New England and Minnesota defense, I roll Mini. And then we have Saints defense or Eagles. I have Saints ranked higher. RJ, Reed, BTJ, need one for the flex. I'm playing RJ Harvey there. Thanks, dude. Great show once again. I appreciate that, Joe. Harvey or Justin Jefferson? I'm going Harvey in that case. Appreciate it. All right, we've effectively caught up to our best of our ability. I think that's where we're going to call it, guys. This was a great Thursday night game. Again, I would say perhaps the best game of the year. And hopefully isn't going to be the best game of the remainder of the season, as we're going to have an exciting playoffs ahead, not only for the fantasy football playoffs, but the actual NFL playoffs. So fingers crossed that everything goes in the right direction regarding that. But that's where we're going to call it today. I do appreciate y'all coming through supporting the channel. As for content tomorrow, I might end up live streaming tomorrow night. I have to figure out what I'm doing with my schedule. But I certainly will be back on Saturday, noon PST, live streaming here on the channel for 2 hours prior to the game between the Washington Commanders and Eagles. And then, of course, I'll be back on Sunday morning starting at 7 a.m. PST, live streaming for 3 hours prior to the Sunday slate of games for the week. I appreciate y'all coming through, supporting the channel as you guys typically do. But that's what we're going to call it. Dart, Lawrence, or Jacoby. As of those three, I had Jacoby ranked highest earlier today within my video. Appreciate it. Vikings or 49ers defense? I'll take the Vikings defense there. Appreciate it. All right, y'all. I'm cueing the music. Have a great rest of your night. And until next time, I'll see you guys. Peace.